My name is Pete John Pianalto. My birth date is 8, 12th, and 21. My parents was Joe Pianalto and Annie Ciganro.
Okay, and who were your grandparents on your father's side?
My grandparents was Peter Pianalto and Teresa.
And then what about on your mom's side? Who were her parents?
Her parents was Giovanno Ciganro, but they were in Italy. No, they were in Tennessee.
Okay, tell me about your family. Who were your siblings? Who were your brothers and sisters?
My sisters. I had three sisters: Matilda, Mary, and Josephine. And I had three brothers: Julie, Louis, and Philip.
Okay. Tell me about your family. What was it like growing up as a child in your family home?
Dad was a guy that he had a little bit of everything, like fruits of every kind, and he even had stud horses that he serviced up at our home place, which was, it brought in a little bit of money, not very much, but a little bit. But he had so many different kinds of fruits, like apples, peaches, tomatoes, grapes, strawberries, and he had us four kids. That he kept us busy. Believe me, that we never even get to go swimming, but just when it was too hot to work, and he'd let us go swimming down the creek down there.
Tell me more about your family business. You said you raised and sold fruits. What else did you do?
Milk cows. That's about it, I guess.
What was your job? You talked earlier about helping some in the family business, that you did all kinds of work, but tell me about your part of the family business.
I don't guess I had a business. Dad had everything lined up for us to do whenever we woke up in the morning. We used horses and stuff that all the time. No vehicle like a tractor or anything like that. It was all horse-drawn equipment. That's about it. He kept us busy.
Tell us about that horse-drawn equipment. What were some examples of it? How would you use them?
Hook them to the plows and plow the strawberries, plow everything they had. And it wasn't a small amount of fruit. There was large amounts, like we had maybe 20 acres of grapes, and maybe you'd have 10 acres of peaches and 20 acres of apple orchard, and tomatoes and strawberries. We hired some people from Oklahoma to host strawberries and stuff like that. So, because around here there wasn't very many people that liked to do that kind of work, I guess. So he hired some girls from over Oklahoma, and I remember the name was Mari, and they lived there on the place. We had an old shed down there. They stayed in that shed, and they'd come over. Dad would go over there and get them over at Locust Grove. He'd go over there and get them and bring them back over here, and they'd live down there in the shed down there.
Besides working for your father on the family business, what other jobs did you do growing up? Like maybe working for neighbors or other things you might have done for money?
I worked for Charlie George catching chickens. $26 a week. 7 days a week. And that wasn't very much. I went to the 8th grade of school, and my last year in school, Dad let me drive a. No, we used to go in a buggy, a horse and buggy, first years of my schooling, and then the last year, which was in the 8th grade, Dad let me drive a Model T Ford car to school, and I'd haul the ones like three of them below me that they'd go with me, and we'd go to school and then back home. Had chores to do when we got home, milk cows, or go get the cows to start with. Maybe sometime we'd have to go a half a mile or more to get the cows, because he had a place rented, not on our place, but it was an 80-acre farm joining it, and we'd have to go get the cows and put them in the lot, and you'd milk them by hand. They'd all stand there and they'd let you milk them out there. Get you a stool and sit out there wherever you wanted to go milk the cows. That's where they went. They put it in a cream can, in a 10-gallon can, and then the milk truck would come by of a morning and pick them up, take them to Pet Milk Company. You probably heard of Pet Milk, and they'd process it. That was everyday thing.
You mentioned going to school. Tell me about when you first remember going to school and what it was like. You went and where'd you go? First of all, where'd you go?
I went to Taneytown, and it was the year they built the school in Tontitown, the school that's there now. And I think I was in the first grade when I went to the first year of school. I was in the first grade, and had Catholic nuns to teach us. I think there was probably 4 nuns up here at one time, usually all the time, I mean. And that's the way the teachers had maybe 3 grades to each nun or something like that. Different rooms. I think there was four rooms down in that school, and there was one teacher to each room. They wasn't all piled up in one, where they'd take care of part of the class and maybe another teacher would come in and take another class. There was 4 schoolrooms, and that's where that's the way they taught us.
Tell me about who were some of your friends and classmates from Taneytown School?
Oh my gosh. Some of the friends in Tontitown. Well, I knew everybody in school, I guess. I'll say that. Like, they were all Italians at one time here. Now you don't know if any Italians are there. They've all vanished. They've died, and they're all gone just about.
You were talking about you knew a lot of your classmates. You knew them all. What about the teachers? Do you remember any of the names of the teachers?
Yeah, Sister Wilhelmine, Sister Genevieve, Sister Pies, Sister Genevieve. She was a mean one. No, she wasn't. She'd really make you mind and learn your lessons. And then there was Richard Artemani. He used to run the store down there, and he kind of looked after the school down there a lot, and he would kind of keep everybody in line. If some of them got out of line or something, the nuns would call Richard, and he'd come down and try to straighten us up. Well, I don't say us, but whoever got in trouble or something like that.
What would they do to you if you did get in trouble?
I don't know, just talk to us, I guess. I don't remember too much. He never did call me, so I wouldn't know. But I know I had a brother, Lewis, that he got in trouble several times that Richard would come down and talk to him, or talk to the parents, or talk to Mom and Dad about it. I was going to tell you a little bit about my mother. She had 7 brothers and 3 sisters. They were all born in Italy, and she was born in the United States, in Tennessee. And we never did know. Dad used to haul grapes and stuff to Texarkana, peddle them on the street down there, and he made a little money that way. Had pick them and haul them down there and sell them on the street. And I guess he met Mom down there somewhere or something, and we never did know where they got married at. I know he said he wrote to her one time and told her, he said, if you want to get married, he said, come up here. So that's when they got married. I don't know when it was. I don't have an old date on it.
Tell me about your household. You said you had a big family. What was it like at mealtime and in the house?
To start with, we lived. There was all of us. We lived in a 3-room house up there, west of here. West of here, about 3 miles up the road, and that's when we drove the wagon and buggy to school, and they had to go that far to go to school. They used to be guys. We'd go to school, and there's a couple of guys that was kind of hang on to the buggy. It's easier running that way, and there's Eugene Pianalto and Eugene Taldo. They hang on to the buggy, and we didn't want them to do that because it slowed us down, a little bit anyway. And we'd try to whip them away with a whip and stuff. But I guess they're the ones that, I don't know, they'd run along the buggy and try to hold on to the buggy there to maybe to slow the buggy down or something, I don't know. But anyway, whenever we got home, we unhooked the horse and buggy, and next morning they'd be hooking back up, go to school again the next day, so.
What are some of the earliest memories you have of Taneytown, coming into town and doing stuff in Taneytown? What are your earliest memories?
The grape festival, I guess, is probably the earliest that I can remember. And I can remember my dad had something to do with it. I don't know what, but he's the one that run the games and stuff that they had out in the yard there. And I remember him running that sack. You get in the sack and race. Sack race, that's what he called it. But I remember him running that, and I was small, I guess. I don't even know if I got into the race. I might have been too small to even run the race. And they didn't have too much out there. They had a kind of a shed on the side of the old schoolhouse that was been torn down, and they sold hamburgers and stuff out of there. And they'd sell watermelons, and they wouldn't have too much, just stuff like that.
What else can you remember about the Grape Festival? What would did you ever work at the festival or help them?
Oh, yeah.
Tell me about that.
I've helped, I guess, ever since I got big enough. I'd serve in the hamburger stand, serve hamburgers and stuff like that. It was just on the side. It was kind of a shed just on the side of the old schoolhouse that was there. And they'd have plays and stuff up in that old schoolhouse, and it had a stage on it, and we'd do stuff like that, and they'd find something for us to do, whatever it was. And I remember I was singing in the choir back in the early days, and they took us to Springdale to sing at I guess a museum in Springdale or something. Anyway, I kind of remember that. It was early ages.
Um, what else do you remember about Taneytown? What were some of the stores or places you would go to trade?
Oh, John Millar's store. That's where we kept our horse. He had a store right there down on Barrington Road there, and he had a little grocery store, dry goods stuff mostly, and candy. And we'd always go in there, and he'd give us two two pieces of candy maybe or something. He was such a good guy, and he did that to every school kid that ever went to school in Tontitown, I guess. Uh, he had dry goods stuff back in the back, and no lights back there, but he had strings up there where he had a cash register and stuff, and he knew which string to pull to show people where the dry goods, whatever they wanted to buy or something, and that he'd pull that string and then go back there and see what was back there. It was dark, and he'd pull them lights to show people. There wasn't no electricity. No, it was electricity, but no switches or anything. It was all by strings.
What other stores do you remember trading with
Oh,
or going into?
Hardeman's store, uh, the post office. I remember that. Louis Verona had a feed mill there right in the middle of town there. He had feed that I guess they fed chickens out of that. They didn't feed them there, but he kept the feed there. And when somebody wanted to feed, well, they'd bring them feed and stuff like that. And that's the first job I remember having right here in Tony, on this place. We bought this place in 1947, and I've been here ever since. So, and I fed chickens with Richard Artemani, which he had the feed store up there, and also a grocery store and all that stuff. And I remember going $500 in the hole, the first batch of chickens after we got married. That was in 1948.
You mentioned earlier catching chickens. What year would that have been in? And what
Yeah,
was that like?
I guess it was before. It was before I went to California. No, I went to Fort Smith, and I went to an aircraft school down there. That was just before the war. And I went to an aircraft school, and they taught us a little bit about riveting and stuff like that. And I come back home, and I went to California to work on airplanes out there. They was building airplanes out on the coast out there. And I was a riveter. You'd put these rivets in there, and there'd be somebody behind there holding maybe a iron bar or something, and that rivet gun would go through like that, and it'd flatten it where the rivet would tighten the metal up on it. And I worked out there a year, and they drafted me out there, and I told them I wanted to go home. So I come home, and I was home maybe a month or so, and they called me from here, from Fayetteville, that I was drafted again. So that's when I went to Little Rock and several places before I went overseas.
When did you do the chicken catching? Was that after you got back?
No, before. I was a teenager, I guess, or maybe a little older, just before I went to this aircraft school down in Fort Smith. And it didn't last very long. They didn't show us. I can't remember now what they showed us, if they showed us anything or no. But anyway, they got us a job out in California. That's when I went out there.
Okay. Talk to me about, you mentioned some of them already, but tell me about the people you remember in Taneytown, the maybe the older or the more prominent people that you remember the most that you?
I can tell you about some of them that was in my grade, maybe, or something like that.
Perfect.
There was Catherine Taldo, Tom Frankel, Lawsry, Vincent Lawsry, Gerald Walker, Liz and Rita Barilla. They went to school with me, and then right after, I guess after we got out of school, they took off and went to California, and they never did. The whole family moved to California, and they never did come back here. I don't guess they ever come back even for a visit.
Talk to me about your church. Where did your family go, and what was it like?
We go to church every Sunday. Never missed. Getting this old truck that Dad had, and he'd take us down there, and we go to church. Never missed church. There was a old truck. I don't know what model it was, whether it was a Model T or what. But anyway, that's the way we went to church. And we lived in this 3-room house. We catch water off of the house to maybe use to, had a cistern, that run in a cistern. And that's where we got the water to take a bath and stuff like that out of the cistern. Because we had a well, but it was down in the holler, and it was off quite a ways away from the house too. And many trips I made down to that well to haul up a couple of buckets of water to drinking water and stuff like that. But it was just a 3-room house, and I remember my brother Philip. He was married in that house. He was the last one that was born in that house. I got it wrong. But anyway, he was the last one born in that house, and after that, Dad built this house up there now that's still there. Everybody's gone but me, and it's up for sale now. So it's been there since 1926, and I hear now that it's up for sale. So I don't know what's going to ever happen to it, but.
Tell me more stories about what it was like growing up, having no electricity, no water, no.
We had carbide lights. It was by the door. It was just a little light. You couldn't see very much with it, but the lights would get dim, and we had a stick. We'd go out there in this tank and stir up the stuff, whatever that stuff is. I don't even know what it is now. Stir up the stick to make the lights get better. Stir it with a stick. I mean, I guess it was some kind of like coal or something like that. I don't know. I don't remember too much about it, but we had a light switch, not a light switch, by each door, and he turned it on to go through the house and stuff like that. But that was before they had electricity. Did you ever hear of carbide lights?
Tell me more.
I don't know too much more. That's about it. That's the only thing I remember. And you had to run pipe to each door, I guess, or something wherever the switch, the lights come from. I guess it was gas off of that carbide, I guess, is what made it burn, I guess. I can't remember too much about it, but I just remember that there was one by each door, and maybe not every door, but. And we used kerosene lamps too when we went to school to do our homework and stuff. Sitting in the middle of the table there, and everybody got around the table and did their homework with a kerosene lamp.
Tell me what it was like at your church. How many people went, and what were some of the traditions y'all had at your church?
I can remember a lot of them, but I can't tell you what they did in church. We had several different priests, that I can remember a few of them. Father Schaefer is the one married us. And then there was a Father Lewis, Father McBaron. He was one of the first ones, and he had a race car that he drove. I don't know where he ever got a race car that time. That time of the year that he must have been pretty rich, had a rich family or something. But he had a race car that he drove around. And that was Father McBaron.
When you were a kid growing up in Taneytown, what would you and your friends do for fun?
We'd play a shinny, get a can, you'd make a stick with a stick maybe about that long, and like a golf club. It was like a golf club. You'd go out in the timber and draw and get maybe a sapling that was like that, and if it had a crooked root thing on it, we used that for a shinny stick and play shinny on it with hitting a can. I remember Joe Rinaldi. He was pretty close to our neighbor there, and for fun and maybe sometime he lived down a hill from our house, and we'd roll tires up and down that hill for exercise, I guess. I don't know what else. Not for exercise, but have some fun, I guess. I don't know. But I remember doing that. Roll a tire up and down a hill.
What about when you were a kid? What did your parents and their friends do for fun?
Mom had a brother that lived right over here. In fact, her daughter's still living there. She's going to be 100 years old. I think when is it? Maybe this week or something. Maybe this year anyway. She's still living over in the same house. And we'd visit them back and forth, maybe every Sunday or something. And he'd come down, Uncle Joe. He'd come with a team of mules and a buggy. Him and his wife and the kids, all their kids had 5 girls. They had no boys, and they'd come up the house, or we'd come down and visit them on a Sunday and stuff like that.
What about poaching? What is that, and why do you play it? Tell me about it.
Why? It's a game that they can play 8. 8 people can play it, and I remember my grandpa. He bought us. It was Dick Fury up here. His dad lived up pretty close to us, and he made these boats. They're made out of wood. They're about that size, and you roll the ball, and whoever's closest got a point. And then maybe somebody will knock it away or something, and maybe they got a point. But that's the way that you play it. It's the one that's closest to the ball at the end of when everybody has through playing.
Tell me about how that was kind of a social event for the men to get together. I mean, how often would you play, and how much fun was it?
It was a lot of fun. There was a lot of people played it. There was one guy that lived right up here, just maybe a half a mile from me, and it was out in the timber, and he made this bocce court. I don't know how he made it. Maybe somebody helped him or something, but you kind of get this chat, real fine chat, and put it on make the things out of railroad ties to start with, 8 foot by maybe 80 foot. No, I think it's 13 foot by 80 foot, and it used railroad ties to keep the ball from going everywhere, and it'd stay inside that court there, and choose up to each one of them, and would choose up to see who had partners and stuff, and you'd always say the quel que più vecchio el conta, the one that's the oldest counts. and it started counting. I mean, and they'd count around until you got 4 on each side, and then they'd play that way.
Who are some of the better players, and who
Oh.
are some of the ones you remember as friends that you played with?
Buck Bernetti, Sil Cortana, Dick Frankel, John Frankel. That was her dad. One of them was her dad, and of course, I played the biggest part of the time until I got where I can't walk around. It's been about a year now that I quit playing, and I'm 96 years old, so I enjoyed it, and I really missed playing. And they still go down there and play. There's not as many of them. The biggest part of them are dead, gone. And if they're not Italians, I don't guess they cared for it too much. But I still got nephews and that goes and play, so they still stay in the game.
You mentioned this earlier, but I want to ask you again. Is there anything else you can think of about the Grape Festival that you haven't mentioned? Some of the traditions or some of the things?
I don't think they ever. I don't remember them ever giving away anything at the Grape Festival like they do nowadays. Or put a car up for auction, or I mean, not for auction, to sell tickets on it, and then the girl that sold the most tickets, she'd be the queen for that year, and it got to where now it's pretty hard to even find girls that'll run for it. They sell tickets, and whoever sells the most tickets on a car would be the queen. My daughter run one year, her and my son's sister-in-law, they run together, and instead of counting the tickets, they said no, they were going to draw out of a hat this year, and that's the first time they ever did that. I think they draw the name out of a hat, whoever was going to be queen, and I remember that. Of course, my daughter was in it, and she didn't get anything, but this other girl won it. By just drawing the name out of a hat.
Talk about the changes you've seen. I mean, what was the street like? What was the town like when you first came, and then how has that changed over the years?
We used to, on Highway 68 out here, this is 412 now, but that was the first highway, and it was a gravel highway from here to Tulsa. And our dad used to haul some grapes over there, sell them at a fruit market over there. And I went with him. Me and my brother went with him one time, and we got out here by Locust Grove out in there somewhere, and they had this gravel piled up. You know how this used to pile it in the road and then grade it where it level it out and stuff. Anyway, he hit that pile of gravel and turned the whole truckload of grapes over. And so we messed around. The ones that was halfway decent, we stayed there, and some Albano Maestri come by, and he was the one that had the market over there, and he took what we had, scrap and stuff, over there. And I don't know what it did, sold it or give it away. I don't know what they did with it, but I didn't go over there. We come back home some way. I don't even know how we got back home.
So it went from that to, how did it change over the years?
Well, grape juice used to be here, you know. You remember that? And we used to pick grapes by hand till they got this machine in there. And they had the machine that Bobby and Richard Pianalto bought a machine. It was a $35,000 machine. And they'd go around and pick grapes with that machine. And that's when the grape picking by hand ended. And you could pick I'd say maybe 10 acre grapes in a day, or in maybe 8-10 hours or something like that. you could pick a lot of grapes with it. And they haul them to Welch's grape juice down here, and they'd make grape juice out of them. They finally decided that they wasn't making enough money, this plant here in Springdale, so they told us that they wasn't going to take grapes from us the next year, so they paid us to pull our vineyards out. And of course, that was about the end of the grape vineyard then. So that's the way that happened.
What about in recent years? Talk about how the town has gone from kind of small to really big, and how that's.
Like I was telling you a while ago, there used to be all the time Italians. Now there ain't any Italians. There's you can count them by hand. The ones that's in church and stuff. The rest of them, I don't know them, and we don't. You just don't know them. They come in, they're building a housing thing right up here on the edge of my place here. They're building 26 houses right there. It's just, you can see it from the back porch here. 26 houses, and the Italians are gone from here just about. I mean, except the young ones, you know, the young ones, they don't care too much, like, let's say, like I thought about them whenever I was growing up and stuff like that. But we'd kind of all stick together, but I don't think they do anymore. Some of them, you know, kids, maybe they never miss Mass, going to church on a Sunday, never miss Mass. Nowadays, a lot of people don't go to church. I mean, that's the way it is. It's just,
let me ask you this. Is there anything that I haven't thought to ask about that you'd want to tell me of interesting stories or anything that you could tell? Because I haven't, some things I maybe didn't ask about.
I was in school one year, and we'd get in fights, you know, and there was a place down in the basement there. These older guys had kind of make us fight, or push each other on, like the two of them. Me and this Herbert Hess was fighting one time, and Oliver Pianalto. I fought with him down there, and they'd push us into each other, so they'd have to fight. And it was just in a little thing down there in the basement of the school. My dad, I was always told that my dad did the cement work in the basement of the school that's there now. He looked after doing that basement, the cement work on it. So that was way back there too.
If someone came to you and said, I've never heard of Taneytown, I don't know anything about it. What is your hometown like? What is Taneytown like? What would you tell them?
It's a place that I love. My kids don't care too much about it. Some of them do and some of them don't. But to me, it's a great place to live. And I think when Father Bendini took my grandfather and some others up here to look after this place, I think he did a great job doing it. When he come up here from Texarkana, that's where he come from. No, Sunnyside, down southern Arkansas. It's a place down there, Sunnyside. It's an Italian place too, and a lot of our people lived down there. They worked in the cotton fields and stuff like that, and a lot of them died down there. That's why Father Bendini took them up here to find a different place for them, because they died of malaria and stuff like that. You know, that they wasn't used to places like that. And
if this is sort of the same thing, but if someone came to you and said, Pete, you could live anywhere you wanted to, Why Taneytown? What would you tell him?
Like I said, went to California, went to Fort Smith, and I always come back to Tontitown. Went to the war, spent 3 years in the Army, back to Tontitown. It was just my home place. That's where I wanted to live, I guess. And we got married in 1948, so we've been married 70 years, so we're doing pretty good too.
If someone asked you to finish this sentence, how would you do it? My favorite thing about Taneytown is, how would you say that sentence?
Our church, all the people that I knew, old and young, I knew a bunch of them, and the older people, I can still remember a lot of the names and stuff, but you know they're all gone. It's been 100 years ago, or whatever. So it's a place that I want to live and die, right in Tontitown.
Anything else?
Let me tell you, now, this won't be about Tontitown, but I spent 3 years in the Army and 2 years over in England, building gliders that was used in the invasion of Normandy. I don't know, thousands. We built thousands of them things over there, and they'd pull them behind an aircraft. And come in here, and I'll look at that picture right there, and I'll show you a glider that we put together over there. There was 121 of us guys that was in the Army together when we went to Robinson and Shepherd Field, Texas. Anyway, there was 121 of us, and our biggest, the oldest, the one had the more rank was a PFC. They sent us over there because we studied some of this stuff down in Texas and stuff, and we was the only ones that knew anything about how to put them together and stuff. So that was 3 years, and we'd take the fuselage. I don't know if you want to listen to this or not. The fuselage was the largest box. There were 5 boxes to a glider. The fuselage, the tail section, the wings, and what was I going to say now? And the nose section. But anyway, this airplane, he pulled 2 gliders. That way they'd have double the amount of passengers going over there when they invaded Normandy. And I heard just here lately there was 10,000 soldiers killed when the invasion of Normandy. So they got them over there as fast as they can, and they even mentioned the gliders that this airplane had pulled 2 of them with an 80-foot rope, and it pull them over there, and when they get where they were supposed to get, I guess they knew by instruments and stuff, they'd cut loose, and then they was on their own. You just had to land it somewhere. And some of them had wheels on them. Some had just skis like that, where they could land in a hurry if they had to land on ice or something. I don't know. But that was my time in the Army.
Do you remember the fire of St. Mary's in the 1920s?
No.
Okay. What about when the old church in the mid 1934 was hit by a tornado?
Yes, I remember that.
Tell me about that.
There was Father Dollerton was our priest, and I don't know how he was up at our house, which was about 3 miles up the road west of here. He was up at our house when that storm hit. Well, I can remember seeing that storm come up out of the northwest, and it looked pretty rough. So we was all maybe saying the rosary or something. I don't know. Anyway, Father Dalton was up at our house whenever that church blew down, and he went home, and the only thing that wasn't hurt was a statue of St. Joseph, and that's where they named the St. Joseph Church. That's how they named it after that. What I can remember of it.
What about the rebuilding of the old church with blocks? That was in 1938. What do you remember about that?
I remember the only thing I can remember is I'd go to church and all these people had white heads. There was older people down in the church, and I remember my grandpa, he'd always go down in the front of the church on the front pew and he always knelt down there. So I remember him down there. He was 93 years old when he died. So
Do you remember the dedication of the old church in 1942?
yeah.
Tell me about it. What do you remember about it?
Well, I don't remember too much about it. I was there, but I don't remember too much about it.
And what about the move to the new church in 1994? Tell me about you remember about that.
I don't know if they had I don't remember if they had any celebration or anything like that, but I think I went down there every day and watched them build that church. So, you mean the one we got now?
Yeah, the move to the new church in 94.
I spent a lot of time down there watching them build it.
Tell me what it was like when your family got electricity, if you remember. What it was like before and after.
I don't remember. I don't hardly remember. I was telling you before we used that carbide, but I don't remember when we got electricity, or I just can't remember getting it. And I don't know, whenever Dad built that house up there, whether they had electricity and that was in 1926, so I don't know when we got electricity. I just don't know.